Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Myra Hunt on Endless Encouragement. So happy that you're here to join us today. It's rainy here in Cincinnati, and the Bengals did not win. Oh, well. But so happy that you're here, and you're going to be filled. So I hope you have pen and paper ready for our guest today. He's going to bring us a lot of encouraging and motivational things that we need to know in 2014. The chat room is open right now. So if you'd like to join our chat room, you can join the chat room. Also, we are on Twitter, and if you want to use the hashtag #YourEncouragement, please do that, and we'll be tweeting throughout the show. I'm just letting you know that we do have a free app, and it's on Google Play Store, so you can stay up to date with all of our social sites. It's just one touch of a button. You'll have access to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, our website, Blog Talk Radio. That's all included in our free app, and you can find that free app on Google Play Store. So there's no need to go to multiple places to keep up with what's going on with Endless Encouragement. Check out our $5 gig on Fiverr.com/MyFairHun. I'll advertise your product or services during our show just for $5. That is a deal. You cannot get advertising for $5 wherever you go. So check out our gig on Fiverr.com/MyFairHun. And just remember, the exposure is more than just Blog Talk Radio. I also post all my shows are on iTunes and YouTube, so your $5 will go a long way. Also, join our network. If you're looking to host a radio show, please join our network. We are looking for hosts right now. The show content is just inspirational, so if you're interested in hosting a show on our network, just email endlessencouragement@gmail.com. Once again, that's endlessencouragement@gmail.com. And your first 4 shows are free, so you might want to check out that deal. And just follow us every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're also going to be doing shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m., so join us there as well. But we're going to get right into it, our topic today, because I know that he's waiting, and we were just talking for about 10 minutes and already inspired me. But our topic today is dreaming big in 2014 and how to turn your dreams into reality. And that is so important. If you have a dream and if you're not turning it into reality, then that's just a thought, really, but you have to be able to turn it into reality. And our guest today is Karim Ellis, and he's going to tell us all about it. Karim, are you there?
I am absolutely here, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to be on the call with you. I know we were supposed to do this last year in 2013, and I came down with an illness and could not make the call. I remember sending you a message saying, hey, the doctor gave me some drugs that make you sleepy. So, I know I couldn't make the call, but I knew definitely I wanted to do this again with you in 2014. So it's great to be here. It's great to start January off with this. I know a lot of people have goals set up that they want to accomplish. And for me, a goal is just a byproduct of a dream, or better yet, a vision. So we're going to go into all that today. So we're going to have a blast.
Yes, yeah. Well, you know what? It was meant. I don't want to say it was meant for you to get sick, but it was meant for you to come on and be my first show. Yes, everyone, this is my first show for 2014. Endless Encouragement, and we're talking about dreaming big. So it was actually meant to happen this way. Not that you got sick. We don't want to wish anyone else to get sick. But Karim, just tell us so that people can get to know you, because I know that you're on my Facebook page, so I know some of your story, but the listeners let the listeners know a little bit more about you before we actually get into the topic, and you'll understand more of his story as to why this is such a great topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tell everybody off the bat, I don't care who it is you learn from. I don't care who mentors you, who coaches you. One of the first things you do when you're looking for someone to learn from, I don't care what their background is, you have to they have to be able to show you what I call the spoils of victory. In other words, if they're preaching something towards you, if they're telling you something to do in your life, you have to be able to look at their life and see that it's worked out in their life as well. It's almost like me going to the bank and, one of the bankers there says, hey, I can take your money and I can, flip this $10,000 and create $100,000 in it. Where you're giving me this advice, show me proof that it works in your own life. Because you got so many people giving so much unsolicited advice at this point in time. I think that's one of the reasons why so many people are running around, like a chicken with their head cut off. They can't figure out what's valid and what's not. So I'm always open with my story because I believe that our trials that we go through in life, our testimonies are designed for one purpose and one purpose only, is to help someone else out there in the world that's going through the same thing. So with me growing up, I'm a native of Cincinnati, Ohio. I was not born here. I was born originally in Gary, Indiana. And when I was born, we were absolutely poor, okay? And I mean poor to the point that out of 7 days of the week, I could pretty much guess what we were going to eat 5 days of the week. It would always be pinto beans because that was the cheapest thing you could afford. I mean, we were so broke that, we used to look at going to Burger King or McDonald's as almost a luxury because we just didn't have the money to do it. And things transitioned around the age of 3 or 4. Dad got brought out here, got a great paying job. We instantly turned into middle-class citizens, and we went from having nothing to having almost everything that we wanted. We were actually upper middle class. And at that point in our lives, everything was going along swimmingly. But the particular job Dad worked at had a huge layoff. And unfortunately, they let him go. And so that was the first wake-up call for me as a young man. I watched us lose our house to foreclosure. I watched us lose a couple rental properties to foreclosure. We had to relocate. At that point in time, Dad had so much money coming in. He had the kids going to different private schools for one point in time. And so the valuable lesson is most of us create our income and we build a lifestyle that mirrors our income. And so the big dilemma being is if you're not in control of that income, if someone tampers around with that or tapers with that, you're instantly in trouble. So I was automatically kind of an entrepreneur from Jump Street, but watching Dad give all his time, effort, and energy because he was managing. If you're a regular employee, you're expected to clock in for 40 hours a week. When you're management, you're probably giving them somewhere around 50 to 60. So I watched all this dedication, time, effort, and energy only to kind of go out the window and the job just kind of said, hey, you're just a cog in the machine. It's nothing personal, but this is the decision the company has made and we're going to let you go, okay? So that was my first wake-up call. I didn't learn from that lesson because I still went out there to the 9-to-5 arena, and then I went through a tumultuous relationship where we just got together we got together really at too young of an age. We really didn't know what we wanted in life. We tried to make it work out. In the separation of this relationship, I was the person that had to leave the apartment. Now, one of the things I learned from watching Dad go through his situation was fear, because we live in a society where we base ourselves off of what we have. In other words, we look at our economic status, we look at the cars we drive, the job we have, the house we live in, and we make a choice decision as to whether or not that person I'm looking at is successful or not. So for me personally, I went for about 3 months living out of my car or sleeping over buddies' houses, sleeping on their couches, because I didn't want the world to know that I was literally homeless at that point. Then I got to a breaking point where my older brother said, hey, you know what? You can't do this. It's not safe for you to stay out here sleeping in your car. You got to go back home. So reluctantly, I moved back to my parents' house. So here I am at the age of 26, sleeping on their couch, all my personal belongings stacked up in their garage, in the back trunk of my car, or in the living room. And it was at that point in my life where I started to hit a breaking point. It was funny because as a kid growing up, I had these vast dreams and goals for my life. And all of us do. When we're third grade, fourth grade, someone says, what do you want to be? And we have these vast visions of what it is we want to be in life. Somehow when we hit adulthood, things just don't pan out the same way as we thought they would. Hitting adulthood is a reality check for most of us. So with me personally, I went through the stint of trying to make things work out. The problem with being in a relationship, you accumulate bills and debt, and then when you separate from somebody, if those bills and debts are in your name, you're in trouble. Because, again, two-income household means two parties to help pay those bills. So my credit went to pretty much hell in a handbasket. I ended up slacking off the job out of being depressed and ended up losing my job. Before I knew it, the car got repossessed because the bank account was closed. They had no money coming in. All the credit cards had been charged off for overdraft fees. And it was at that point, literally, I was at my breaking point where I was on the verge of taking my own life because I couldn't stand the face I saw in the mirror. I didn't feel like a man. I didn't think I looked like a man. I couldn't see anybody showing any interest in me. And that's when God actually put a stop to it. And that's when he unveiled the dream or the vision he had for my personal life. And that's the reason why I tell everybody to dream big, because a lot of us are walking around here playing it safe, but we're not dreaming big. So for me personally, it's been a journey. It's been a 10-year journey to get from that man who was trapped on his parents' couch at the age of 26, to get to where I'm at now. Now, it wasn't without pitfalls. For me, I had to have, like I said before, a purpose and a plan and a blueprint. So for me personally, and everybody's plan will be different. But with me personally, I used real estate to get to my finish line. So I learned how to master the skill set of real estate, and real estate unlocked the door for professional motivational speaking, and that brings me to where I'm at now. So I'm the owner of 2 businesses, Empire Property Solutions and Empowered Education. And right now I'm on the phone with you talking to folks about how to dream big and accomplish big things in 2014.
Wow, that is an amazing story of, reaching your breaking point and then, God coming in and telling you, no, you can be bigger than this. You're bigger than this. I built you. Basically, that's what he was saying to you. I already instilled in you the qualities that you need, and the 10-year journey, everyone needs to understand that when you're turning your life around, that it's not going to be a one day back at the top again. It's going to take time to rebuild that. So during the 10-year journey, did you ever imagine that you would get to where you're at today?
There was a point in time where I couldn't see it, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later when we talk about our conference. As a matter of fact, let's just jump into it now. There was a point in time where I'm going to say, no, I couldn't see it. And that was probably the most frustrating thing in the world, because I would hear what God said, hey, this is the plan I have for your life. And everyone asks me all the time, to go, why do you say dream big, dream big? Well, you have to understand, another word for dream is vision. And one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is the one that talks about without a vision, the people perish. So in other words, that lets me know that while I'm on this planet, I must have a vision or a purpose for my life. I put an image up on Facebook the other day where I said, if you go to sleep with a dream, you should wake up with a purpose. And that's the challenge for every person on this call right now. If you're walking through life right now, I don't care how much the job is paying you, if you feel like there's some measure of unsatisfaction in your life, 9 times out of 10, that's because you're not moving according to your purpose. Well, what's purpose? Purpose is doing the very thing you were designed to do. Sitting on my desk, in my office desk downstairs, I have a stapler, okay? And I can use that stapler for many different things. If it's a nice spring day and I got the window up and the wind is blowing in, it happens to blow all the papers off my desk, I could take that stapler, place it on top of a stack of papers, and use it as a paperweight. Okay? If the wind keeps blowing in and it happens to blow the office door shut and I'm tired of getting up to open and close the door, I can take that stapler, I can put it against the floor of the door board and use it as a door stopper. Now, I can use that stapler for many different things, but until I use that stapler for the purpose it was designed for, when the engineer drew up the specs, then I have never really used that stapler for its full purpose, which is to staple papers. And that's what I see happen with a lot of people. A lot of people are running around here, they're making money, they're enjoying themselves somewhat, but they're still not walking according to their purpose. So when I talk about having a dream, that means that you should have some sort of vision for your life. In other words, when you're on your deathbed at the end of your days, when everything is said and done, you should be able to look back over your life and say, I accomplished the very thing I was put here to do. And the beautiful thing about a dream is nothing locks you into just having one dream, okay? You can have multiple different dreams for your life based on where you are in the status. I never saw myself doing the motivational speaking back when I was sitting on my parents' couch. It started with baby steps. For me, it started with me having an internet business. I had an internet vintage toy business, and that hustle turned over into real estate. And then real estate turned over to the speaking side of the fence. But when I was back on that couch, I never could have saw that. I just had to know that there was a purpose for my life. I wasn't designed to be put on this planet, as my mentor said, sucking up all the air, drinking up all the water. And at the end of my days, I just simply go home.
Yeah, well, let me ask this. Now, what would you say to someone who is working that 9 to 5, who feel, they're getting that check every day, but they're not living up to their purpose, and they're trying to figure out, well, how do I find my purpose? Because you were able to find your purpose from real estate, which led you to different things, but how do you tell someone who doesn't really, they don't understand, or they can't see what their actual purpose is, and they're really not happy. They're just happy that they're collecting a paycheck, but they're not. Because my thought with my feeling with the purpose of living your purpose is that you're happy. You know, and if you're living your purpose, you are a happy person. And it doesn't, money does not dictate, you're living out your purpose. So how would you, what would you tell individuals who feel this way, that they don't know what their purpose is, or even how to even go and find their purpose?
Okay. Well, what I will say is this, and this is a really great question. I'm glad you asked it, because I was going to try to toss it in there somewhere if you didn't get it. What I tell most people is this, and my mentor said this to me years ago, and it's so profound. He said, I can tell what you're passionate about by the things you choose to pursue, okay? So a lot of times, if you look at your passion is connected to your purpose. A lot of people miss this. There are certain things in life that just simply excite you. Like for me growing up, from childhood to adulthood, and for everyone on this call, the real challenge, if you don't know your purpose, I want you to go back to your childhood. Because the beautiful thing about being a kid is you walk unfiltered. The world at the age of 18 has not tainted you yet. When you were 3, 4, 5 years old, you did what you were designed to do naturally. As a child growing up, if I looked over my unique gifts and talents also merged around my passions, okay? And that passion also revolves around my purpose. As a child growing up, one of the things I had done is I had skipped a grade. Okay, Mom had taught me how to read and write before I was even in kindergarten. So by the time I got to first grade, that first week of school, and the teacher knew that I was performing at a certain level, they tested me and bumped me up a grade. So I was always the youngest person in my class. But for me to skip a grade like that lets me know that, my brain would process stuff very, very quickly. I had the ability to adapt to something, learn it, and master it very quickly. The second thing I learned as a child growing up is when I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher would oftentimes have me sit in her big, gigantic rocking chair and read stories to the class. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot now, but when I'm on the stage in front of 100 people speaking, I would say my first audience was back when I was in kindergarten in front of those 25 kids reading story to them. Okay? What I learned about myself at an early age is your gifts and talents are always trying to make their way out. Your gifts and talents know what environment they're designed to produce in, and they're always trying to get into that arena. So as a child growing up, I was always the person who wanted to be the first to do the book report. I was always the person who wanted to do the stage play. I craved being in front of the room. I craved being in front of an audience, which is not a far cry from what I do now. And if I look at any one of my friends from Facebook, if I think about them in their childhood years, I can recall what they were exceptionally good at. That was their gift and talent. I knew who was the class comedian who can entertain an audience. I knew who was the natural leader in the class, where if we divided into teams, they would automatically look towards them to give them instructions and guidance. Your gifts and talents have been with you since the time you come on this planet. The problem being is when we hit adulthood, a lot of these jobs train you not to use them, because I'm giving you a paycheck to do what I'm telling you to do, not to get creative. So for the person that's struggling with purpose, the main thing I'm going to tell you to do is to find out what you're passionate about. Make a list of 5 to 10 things that you love. They may be hobbies. It just may be something that you get excited about. A lot of times, if a radio program or an MP3 or a television program comes on that correlates around that topic, you're willing to be late to your next destination because you want to catch that program. A lot of times, the things you're passionate about cause you to light up inside. Okay? If you can figure out your passion, I guarantee you your purpose is right around the corner from it.
Oh, I definitely agree, because as you were saying, thinking about your purpose and what you did as a child. As a child, I remember me and my girlfriends, well, one in particular, we would go around acting like we were Channel 9's news, like we were a newscaster. And here I am on a radio show with the mic. But, thinking about... Go ahead.
Well, I want to interrupt you like that, but you said something that was so proficient, okay? And it's what I said to you earlier. What you're designed to do, it wants you to fulfill it. If I take a fish out of water, the only thing that fish wants to do is get back in its natural playground. That fish will flop around until it finds water. And for many people out there, one of the reasons they're literally drowning in their life is because you're not in the right environment. There's an environment designed specifically for the full purpose of mastering your gifts and talents and bringing out the inner greatness. But it's up to you to understand whether or not you're in the right environment. I've worked at many jobs where I was frustrated. In fact, we found out, 10 minutes ago, we have a similar job in common, okay? All of the jobs I worked at before the entrepreneur side of the fence that I was extremely proficient in all correlated up with my gifts and talents and my passion. One of my passions has always been helping people. I've always been a helpful person. If I would go to school and one of my buddies would inadvertently leave their lunch money at home, I would be the person to take my pizza, cut it in half, and give it to them. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've always been that person where someone says, hey, I just ran out of gas, give me $5. I'm more than willing to do so. I'm always a helpful person by nature. And so every job that I excelled at were jobs that correlated to that. It would be customer service jobs. Anytime I was outside that field, I would find myself literally sinking because that wasn't my natural environment. I told someone earlier, a cheetah's designed to run 70 miles per hour on the African soil. If I take that cheetah and put him in the middle of the North Pole, he's not going to run 70 miles per hour. Why? It's not because his body can't do it. The environment's not conducive for him to do it. So he maximizes potential by being in the right environment. So for many of you out there, if you're frustrated right now at your job, it may not be the job's fault. It may be that you're trying to plant your seed of greatness in the wrong environment. You're not supposed to be there.
And this is just a disclaimer. We're not telling you to go quit your job.
Please throw that out there because I don't want 50 emails from people saying you got to pay my bills this week because I quit my job listening to you. You use some discernment in it, but
they'll be emailing both of us. It's like, well, you told me my purpose is I found my purpose and I quit my job. We're not telling you that. All we're telling you to do is just understand the environment that you were created to be the best in. So let me ask this. We were talking about you hit on multiple dreams. Now, how does dreams and purpose, how do they go together, or do they?
Well, they do, and I'll use myself as an example because everybody's different. In my lifetime, there's several things that I want to accomplish. There's several different goals, and let's just go. Everyone says goals. I call them dreams. I call them vision. Everyone has multiple different things they want to see come to fruition. The problem why many people can't get it off the ground is because they look at the scope of what they want to accomplish, and then they look at the here and the now. They look at where they are now versus what they want to accomplish. And, one of my favorite parables that are not even really parable, one of my favorite, animals I use in speeches all the time that deals with clarity of vision is the eagle. The eagle is one of the few animals that can actually see 50 miles out. In other words, an eagle can spot another eagle from 50 miles out. So a lot of times we'll see these wildlife shows where this eagle's flying around in the air, 50 miles up, and we think he's just sitting up there hovering around. In essence, that eagle will spine the land looking for his prey. I've never seen one of these nature shows where an eagle's 50 miles up in the air, does a dive bomb run to what he thinks is a rabbit, gets within 2 feet of it, snatches it up, scoops it up, goes back to its nest, and surprise, surprise, that wasn't a rabbit. You just picked up a skunk. You're about to get sprayed. I've never seen an eagle make that stupid of a mistake. So in other words, when you have your vision, there has to be some sort of clarity to it, okay? If there's not clarity on what you want, you'll never go after it. Confusion equals no. That was one of the very first rules I learned as an investor in real estate, is if there's any confusion in the deal, the other party will never concede to participate in it. So when it comes to having a vision for your life or a purpose that you're going after, there has to be clarity. You just can't say, I want to be a millionaire. That's great, you want to be a millionaire, but what do you want to do to get there? What are the steps you're going to take to get there? In order for me to learn real estate investing, I knew that I had to learn this specific type of real estate investing niche. I knew I was about to have this much money in the bank account. I was about to have this type of circle of influence influence of peers around me at this specific moment in time. There had to be crystal clear clarity on what I was going to go after. And that's the problem I see with a lot of folks why they don't move. It's great to tell yourself in your mind that you want something, but if there's no clarity on where to begin, you'll never go after it.
No, you don't. And if you don't have clarity, like you stated, you can't make a plan because you have nowhere to go. So once we have our dreams, we know what our purpose are. We now have our dreams. So dreaming big in 2014, how do we turn our dreams into reality?
Okay. Well, there's a couple things you got to know. Number one, obviously you got to figure out what your dream is. And your dream oftentimes is going to align with your passion and your purpose. What do you love to do? What can you see yourself getting paid to do? Where do you want to see yourself out, a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and start to make the steps now? So the first thing I ask most people is, do you have a dream? Okay. The second thing is I want you to stop asking people around you for permission to go after your dream. I run into so many people, and the reason they haven't left the starting block is they're too busy asking their job for permission, their family for permission, their friends for permission, the church congregation for permission, and the only one who can give you permission to go after your dream is you. You know, you don't have to raise your hand like you're in elementary school and say, can I have a bathroom pass, go to the bathroom. Just get up and start doing what needs to be done. You know, so the second thing is stop asking people for permission to go after your dream and take the initiative to go after it. You know, your most valuable asset is time. And time is the one thing that's always fleeting. It's always getting away from us. So I tell a lot of people that when I first started this journey, this doesn't come without sacrifice. You show me a successful person, you know, and I can pretty much name what sacrifice they had to go through in order to get to where they were at. Most of us don't like to sacrifice. In fact, when I first started this, I went without TV for a year because that was my vice grip. That was the thing that would occupy the most space on my time register. I would spend hours on end watching other people on TV chasing their dreams, rooting them on, rooting on the next American Idol, rooting on The Voice, and I'm not doing anything to spend time with my dream. If you know more about reality TV shows than your own dream, your priorities are backwards. If you know more about reality TV stars than your own personal dreams and goals, you have mixed up priorities. You got to stop that immediately going into 2014. But the next thing I'm going to say is, you know, for a lot of people and why they're not pursuing their dream is they're focusing on the wrong thing. You know, with me personally, one of my stumbling blocks is I kept focusing on the how I was going to do it versus the why I was going to do it. And a lot of folks listening to this call, that's what's going on right now. The reason they haven't got off the starting block is they're spending so much time focusing on how am I going to do it. You know, I had given a speech a while back where I talked about the concept of how versus why, and I used something real simple like, you know, baking a cake. You know, I gave a scenario where I'm sitting at home and, you know, for whatever reason, I have this strange desire or craving for some chocolate cake. And so I leave my sofa, I go into my kitchen, I fly through the cupboards looking for all the ingredients I need to make chocolate cake. And as I go through these ingredients, I see that I have eggs, I got flour, I got cake mix, you know, but I don't have any cooking oil, and maybe I don't have any milk. So immediately my brain says, well, you don't have all the ingredients necessary to make this cake. And so I put everything back on the shelf, and I go sit back down on the couch, and I just kind of go without. I suffer silently, knowing what I want, but I hit my limitation because I don't see how I can get to the finish line. But if I change the dynamics for a second, I focus on the reason why. And that's for everyone on this call. If you want to get off the starting block quickly, focus on the reason why you want it to happen, why you want this dream to come to fruition. If the reason why I need this cake is for my, you know, 72-year-old grandmother who's, you know, in hospice care, and this weekend is going to be her birthday, and this is going to be the last birthday she has on the planet, and I know her favorite dessert is chocolate cake, the whole dynamics of that situation changes because the cake's not for me. I've got a strong enough reason why I got to make this come to pass. When I looked at what got me off that couch at the age of 26, it wasn't about how. Because how was the limiter that kept me on the couch? I kept looking at my educational background. I kept looking at my finances. I kept looking at my sphere of influence. And when none of those measured up for what I thought I needed to jump into the real estate arena, then I immediately shut down and said, I guess I can't do it. The moment I changed my correlation from how to why is it important to make this happen, then you start to use your creative process to think outside the box. And so for many of you that are stuck, I'm telling you right now, stop focusing on how it's going to happen. God will never give you a vision without giving you provision. And a lot of times that provision is already inside of you in the form of your unique gifts and talents that you're allowing to lie dormant. You know, so that's the other thing I would say is stop focusing so much on the how and make it happen. Focus more on the reason why. You know, Laura Langmeyer says it best. She says, say yes and figure it out on the way. You know, a lot of people refuse and pass up opportunity because they're so busy fixated on trying to figure out how I'm going to do it that the opportunity of a lifetime could be staring them straight in the face. But they're so fixated on how am I going to make it happen, and I don't know this, I don't know that if you just say yes, you can figure the rest out. Just commit to the yes. Commit to getting the dream off the ground.
Right. And focus on that reason, because that reason is what's going to fuel you to find what you need to do whatever you're needing to do. And that is good, because I know when I was starting this show, Endless Encouragement, surprisingly, I never thought about, I did think about it didn't stop me from moving forward. It was like, okay, well, my reason for doing this is to encourage and inspire everyone. So, you know, what venue can I use? And that's how I came up with the Blog Talk Radio show, because I was focused more on the reason of getting this out to everyone, encourage everyone, inspire everyone, and let people know that, you have a purpose. You have a purpose in life, so let's live out your purpose. And it's also good that, that they have to have a dream. Because it was interesting because I heard a sermon yesterday and they were talking about your compass. And it was like, okay, where do you want to go? You have this compass out, okay, and now you're going to point it, but where do you want to go, which relates to what is your dream? Where do you want to go? Because if you don't have a reason or a focus on what you're doing, that compass is just going to stay dormant. But as soon as you start moving, then that compass, it may say, okay, well, you know what, we need to veer off over here real quick because this is something that you need right here to help you along to reach your journey, to reach your destination. So that's really good, And then the second thing you said was about stop asking people for permission because some people just do not have your best interests at heart. And some people, I'll just put it out there. And I'm supposed to be working on how I say things this year. But some people listen, I struggle with that too. I struggle, but sometimes it just comes out. It comes out. I was talking to people today, and I was like, I say things, and I say them so harshly, and I was like, I need to learn to tone it down and make it softer. Yeah. But sometimes it is what it is. But, if you're sitting around, you're waiting to ask people for permission, you're never going to get it because some people do not have your best interests at heart. Some people do not even want you to succeed. Or to be bigger than them, so you stop asking for permission. If that's your dream and your purpose, go for it.
I would even add on to what you just said, and the reason why I add on to it is I think it's perfect timing for it. One of my favorite biblical stories is the story of Joseph. We know that whole storyline revolves around dream or vision. We know that story that God had given Joseph this powerful vision for his life where he was going to be a ruler and his sons were going to be bound down to him. Or not his sons, but his brothers were going to be bound down to him.
Yeah.
And one of the most crucial mistakes, and ask me how I know this, when you have a vision, understand your job is not to broadcast your vision to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes into your life. Not everybody's going to support your dream or your vision. So understand, you have a circle of influence, a circle of peers that you should be fine with that dream telling to. But for the masses, don't broadcast it. I've never seen world champions go celebrate their victory in the loser's locker room. I've never seen that happen. When that game just took place in Cincinnati, I guarantee the victory celebration didn't happen in that locker room with the losing Bengals. Because everybody's designed to take place in your dream and support your dream. Don't go to work talking about your dream. Don't go bragging about your dream. One of the things that set me afoot was I was doing too much dream building and dream talking on the job. And so I became an expense. And in fact, the same thing happened to my father when that happened with him. He was talking about his dreams of real estate and so on and so forth. A lot of jobs are not interested in you building a dream when they're dying in their time. So don't go to work broadcasting what your dream is. If you really have to get that dream out, tell somebody you find you 2 or 3 ride or die people that will stand by you and support you through the tough times. But you don't go broadcast your dream to everybody. Joseph broadcast his dream. They got him sold into slavery and thrown in a pit. And it was going to kill him. It was by the grace of God he didn't get slaves. So, most folks don't want to see you overdo them or outdo them. So you got to be careful who you give that vision to.
Yes, you do. You do. Especially, I would just call them the haters of the world. I hate to classify people like that, but, some people will make it, they may make it to where you're trying to reach a group of people and they may want to go and, no, you shouldn't listen to them or listen to that. So, I do believe in not broadcasting what's going on. And I think I also read that, as far as like millionaires, they don't tell people what's going on and what they're trying to do. You don't tell somebody what you're trying to do until it's too late for them to stop you. Right.
And see what happens is I've seen this happen before. Someone has a vision or a dream that can change their life, and they run their mouth. And the problem being is it's the beginning stage of the dream. So they don't have the resources to get the dream off ground just yet. But you run your mouth to someone who does have the resources. and now you're in trouble. You know, so that's another reason why you can be cautious of who you tell your dream to. Not everybody who comes into your circle is going to celebrate your victory.
Right. And you have to be careful of the people that's just along for the ride.
Right. That's right.
I'll ride and die. Yeah. You know, they're not really
I've
there for you.
I've seen it.
You know, but they want to be associated enough with you to be able to say, yeah, I'm here. You know. So we're turning our dreams into reality. So you gave us three great things, I do believe, how to turn our dreams into reality in 2014. And why did you start off with this topic and make this your 2014 topic, Dream Big?
Well, it was Lord led. You know, I was talking to a lady by the name of Alethea, and she's a brand champion. And brand champion is someone that helps you basically shape and recognize your brand. And with me as a speaker, I'm known for so many different things right now. I'm known for real estate. I'm known for motivational speaking. And what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to confuse the overall message. You know, a lot of folks know as an entrepreneur, that's what I stand behind. I'm behind entrepreneurism not because I don't believe anyone should work. You know, I've just been in a situation where I watched Dad lose his job and I watched myself get fired or laid off the same exact way. And I was always anti-9 to 5. Don't get me wrong. I think that it serves a purpose. But I tell everybody on this planet that you should always be your plan A. A job is always plan B. Plan A means that you understand what you do exceptionally well, and you are always working on mastering that skill set so one day you can be in the driver's seat going towards your dream, okay? That was probably the main reason, because with the economy just still being on turmoil, as a real estate investor, I deal with a lot of folks in foreclosure, and a lot of these folks have fallen victim to the same thing I watched Dad do a long time ago, which is all their effort and energy was based off the income from the job. And the job here in Ohio, you know, you got at-will employment, which means that I can let you go at any time I choose. I don't have to give you a reason why I'm letting you go. I just can let you go. You know, and most folks don't save up money for a rainy day because who wakes up believing they're going to lose their job? You know, the goal being is you have to know what you do exceptionally well. When God puts you on this planet, he puts you here with unique gifts and talents. Now, if you choose to give your gifts and talents to that job for a paycheck, that's on you. But he gave you the means to be successful. You know, when I look at where I'm at right now, it came through understanding my gifts and talents, the ability to learn and master stuff quickly, my speaking talent, my teaching talent. All those things were crucial to me being where I'm at right now. Even the different jobs I worked over the past, decade or so. You know, every job I worked at, I've learned some skill set that I've applied in building my own business and chasing my own dream. It's like we said earlier in the phone call, nothing happens in your life by accident. Everything happens by divine purpose. You know, so he's already giving you the provision for your vision. You might have to flip over a few stones to see what you need, but all the provision you need is right around you in a radius circle. It may be a phone call away from you. It may be an email away from you, but everything you need is right there to get that dream off the ground.
Yes, and what go along with just getting the dream off the ground is you have to have that faith, and that perseverance, because it's not going to be easy, just because you have that purpose and you're going to be like, oh, okay, I can draw, I can just start painting and someone's going to buy my painting. No, if that's your dream and your purpose, go in for it and someone will come along eventually, but, don't look for it to be like an overnight success. We all wish we could have overnight success. That would be awesome. But we still have to. No, it doesn't work that way at all.
Yeah.
You have to build it up.
Now, what I would tell most people is once you've identified your purpose, once you say to yourself, hey, you know what, this is what I know I'm designed to do. Here's my passion. I can see myself doing this and having fun doing it for the rest of my life. I can see myself never waking up angry at the alarm clock because I got to go in and put in 8 hours doing this. Once you've identified your purpose, then the next thing you need to do is set up a blueprint or a plan to get you to that finish line. I kind of, what you said earlier about the compass, I like it. I'm going to go ahead and add on to it. I'm going to consider it like a GPS, okay? Let's say that I want to leave my house and go to my local Kroger's, which may be 5 miles out. When I put that address in my GPS is going to do two things. It's going to give me a direct route to get there. It's going to tell me the direct instructions what I'm going to do to get there. It's also going to tell me the time frame. So there's a realistic approach. I know it's going to take me 15 minutes to get there, okay? A lot of people are unfair to themselves and their dream because they think they're going to have that overnight success. You know, you're not going to build $1 billion company in 1 year, so don't lie to yourself, okay? Don't get so frustrated with the process because it didn't happen overnight. Have a realistic approach of how long it's going to take you to get to that finish line so that way you know how to hang in there. And then the second thing is with my GPS is going to keep me focused. You know, on the road to this Kroger's grocery store, I'm going to pass up about 5 or 6, 15, 20 different destinations. You know, it might be easy for me to say, hey, let me stop off at this local restaurant, or let me stop off at this shoe store, let me stop off at the local mall or whatever have you. That GPS is designed to keep me focused, okay? What happens to a lot of us is we have this vision in mind of what we want to go after, but we're dealing with too many different things chomping at the bit for our attention. From the time you wake up to the time you lay down, something's always going to be there trying to steal and take away your attention from the goal. So one of the things you have to do is you have to be focused. I got a buddy on Facebook by the name of Kenny Rushing. He put a post up today that was so powerful. He said, hey, I'm working on this new clothing line, and one of the most important things he said in the conversation is I turned the cell phone off because it was a distraction. You know, you have to be willing to shut some things and some people and some organizations and maybe even some jobs down if it's zapping your attention. If you can put focus where it's supposed to be, you'll always reach that goal. You'll always reach that measure of success. But it will come harder if you don't have focus. So program your GPS for what it is that you want. And instead of saying, this is my goal, I want you to set up a habit. See, a lot of people can't get goals to the finish line because they'll say, I have a goal to lose weight. And that's great. But what are you going to do on a daily basis till you lose those 20 pounds? Don't tell me you're going to lose weight. What are you going to do Monday, Tuesday? What's your routine? You know, a habit is anything you do for 21 days straight. So as you chase this dream, there's certain things you're about to make habit. You know, and that, like for me, it was turning the TV off. You come home from work, you know, you're working overtime on your business, on your dream. That means I got to shut some stuff down. I can't take phone calls. I can't go kick it with the homies. I got to do what I got to do to pour into this dream, pour into this vision. You know, so when you program your GPS for success, for what you're going to do, you know, you got to be willing to dodge all the different places you can stop it on the way. You can't have anything distract you from this goal. And in doing this, you're going to lose some friends. I can promise you. If you get serious about this, some people are going to walk out your life because they're going to be upset about the change that you're bringing on. But the thing about change is this: no one embraces change. You know, that's the most powerful thing I say about change. People go, that's not true. I say, listen, every 4 years we get a new president. And for the next 4 months, my social media feed is by upset, angry people about who the new president is. People do not like change. That's one of the worst things in the world is forced change. You know, but it boils down to how bad do you want it? How bad can you focus on it? Not everybody that starts out, which is going to be there when you get to that finish line. I'm a living testimony of it. I've lost some good buddies and friends along the way.
Yes. Now, when you're programming your GPS, because you talked about multiple dreams, should someone go and try to gain multiple dreams, or should you just work on one dream at a time?
You need to. I'm a huge Napoleon Hill fan, and he said it best. He said, you know, whatever it is you want in life, he said, take all your eggs and put them in one basket. See, the world teaches you different. The world teaches you to do a little bit of this, 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 and then hope they all hit. He teaches it differently. He says, take all your eggs and put it in one basket, and then you cower over top of that basket. You do your best to protect anybody from kicking the basket over. In other words, when I knew that I wanted to be a motivational speaker, and this is back when I was around the phase of finishing up the internet business and jumping over to real estate, you know, what happens is this. I can sit there and try to do multiple different things. I'm going to frustrate myself because it goes back to focus. I can't be focused on 20 things at one time. My purpose should be to focus on the one thing that's going to get me through the front door. In other words, I got this one seed that I want to plant. If I could take this one seed and plant it in the right environment, the right soil, because you can plant a seed everywhere, that don't mean the seed's going to grow. If I can plant the seed in the right environment and protect it and water it and nurture it until it hits up into adulthood, then what's going to happen is when that tree matures, all of a sudden it's going to bear fruit. And when that fruit opens up, it has additional seed. It has additional dreams that can be planted at that point in time. Let's take Tyler Perry. This is a great example. When he started out as a playwright, he was a struggling playwright. People told him that no one would come to see his chicken circuit plays. You know, no one's going to see these little chicken circuit plays. No one's going to come see these little things. He had a opening play where only like 3 people showed up, and those 3 people were his friends. No one came to see the play. He did not abandon ship. He didn't go and divulge his energies into 15 different things. He stuck with the one thing he knew how to do exceptionally well, and that was his gift of writing and storytelling. He had a passion for conveying a story to the audience. And we see now that we're grateful that he did that, whether you like him or not, because he took that one seed, he planted it, he matured it, and now he has TV shows, movies. You see all these different dreams coming true because he planted one seed. It goes back to how versus why, because so many people are saying, I want this nice car, I want this nice house, I want this, but I'm living off of $30,000 a year, so I can't see how it's going to happen. You know, you're focusing on trying to go after too many things at one time. Take one seed and plant that one seed. I knew all the things that I wanted to do once God started to unveil the vision and purpose for my life. It became real easy. It's okay, I want to see all these things happen, but I can't make all these things happen. I'm getting ahead of my time. So let me focus on planting this one seed. Let me be faithful to this one seed. Let me plant it. Let me mature it. Let me do whatever I can to protect it so no one can come along and steal the seed. I don't want an animal coming along and digging the seed up before it hits maturity. I want the roots to grow deep so it's anchored, so when the storms of life come along and rock this tree as it's growing, the tree won't be blown over. You know, I want to do everything I can to protect this seed, this dream seed, if you want to call it. Because once the seed is planted and it matures, all of the fruit it bears, because the beautiful thing about a tree, if you plant an oak seed, that tree over its lifetime will reproduce its seed maybe 1 billion times. That's 1 billion different dreams coming off that tree at any given season. You know, so the goal is to take that one thing that I know I can do exceptionally well right now. If I'm a writer, then I need to be working on that book, and I need to do that right now. If that book opens up the doorway for a talk show or whatever else, that comes down the road. But what's important to me right now is planting this one seed. If I'm a singer and I eventually want to be an artist or a producer behind, work on that one thing you do exceptionally well right now. Plant that one seed. Don't focus on all the other stuff. It'll come. But focus on the one seed that needs to be planted now. If you can do that in time, when it's time for the harvest, that's the key. When it's time for the harvest, all that other stuff will be made known to you.
Yeah, and that's really important to know, because I know even with me starting the Blog Talk Radio show, you have so many dreams that, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to focus into this. And for me, I just had to say, no, let's just do the radio show. Let's just do the radio show. But and understanding that you have to have that seed planted, because it has to be rooted down deep. Because once you start building dreams, you don't want that tree to start, falling over to the side because you really haven't taken the time to make sure it was mature enough, to withstand, to handle all those dreams that are just hanging down off of it. So that's really important to know. We're coming down to the last 12 minutes of our show. This has really been awesome for me as well. I told you this before coming on. I'm like, wow, okay. You done gave me some information. So I don't want to get you off the phone before you tell everyone how to find you, because I know you sent it to me in an email, and I was like, okay. He's like, you're everywhere, which is awesome. So tell everyone, how can we find you? How can we locate you and everything? Okay.
Well, most notably, I'm obviously on social media. And when I say social media, I mean almost every site you can think of, I'm there. If you just Google Karim R. Ellis, and specifically R, I got another guy out there by the name of Karim Ellis on there. No relation, but that's the reason why we did the R, to make sure that we have distinguished ourselves. But if you type in Karim R. Ellis, I'll pop up. Obviously, a lot of your folks on Facebook already know me. Send me a friend request. I got a fan page as well. If you want to reach me by email, you can reach out to me at Karim, that's Karim, and that's at empoweredmoves.com. Okay, Karim at empoweredmoves.com. And, I mean, for the most part, that's where we are. So we got a new book coming out here, looks like in March, and that's going to be called Empowered to Drive. And we got something we're aiming for. It's either going to be August or September. I'm thinking more towards September. It's going to be called the Dream Big Academy, where we're going to take folks and help them take their dreams and turn them into reality. We're going to put them on the building blocks to get them where they need to be at. I'm tired of folks coming to me and giving me excuses of why they've limited themselves on dreaming big. I don't want any more excuses on that. Everyone has the potential to have a vision for life, and you should be actively going after it. You don't want to go to the end of your days saying, hey, look at all this time I had to accomplish it, and I didn't accomplish it. What's the reason why? Because at the end of the day, the reason's you. No one has a limiting power over yourself but you. Right. So if they want to reach me, those are the ways they can reach me at. Yeah.
And how did you come up with your name, Empower Moves?
Well, it's the company's called Empowered Education. And, I like the word empower more than anything else. the actual Webster's Dictionary definition of it. And so when I saw that word, I actually fell in love with it, because I believe that, there's something about everyone's life where you have to jump into the driver's seat, and that's the main thing. We've been raised to live our lives where we have everyone taking care of us from the time we are knee-high to a grasshopper, up to adulthood. And folks go, that's not true. I go, yeah, if your job tells you come in right now, you come in right now. If your job tells you can't go on vacation, then you can't go on vacation.
Right.
I believe that there's a lifestyle out there for you where you are the person calling the shots. And it's not through some illegal form. It's not through some form where you're hurting or alienating anybody. I believe that when God puts you on this planet, he promised you the perfect life. But you have to be willing to go after it. There's going to be some sacrifice involved. You have to know exactly what you're going after. And the problem with many people is we've gotten in a comfort zone of not wanting to think for ourselves. I tell most people that if you want to be successful, you have to be willing to change your sphere of influence. In other words, we play to our comfort zone. When I was in the 9-to-5 arena, there was nothing wrong with it, but most of my folks in the 9-to-5 arena were just simply living for that next paycheck to make it to the next paycheck and the next paycheck. The moment I start to say I'm not comfortable with this, I could no longer fit in that circle of influence because I was already thinking outside the box. So I had to be willing to leave my current comfort zone. I have to be willing to leave my home ground and be around other folks who are doing the exact thing I want to do. So the challenge for many of you, if you got this dream and you know what it is, you got to start hanging around some kick-butt champions that are already doing the thing you want to do. In other words, I just didn't jump over to motivational speaking. I started hanging around other motivational speakers as coaches, as leaders, as teachers. Same thing with real estate. I just didn't jump into the real estate arena. I started hanging around other folks that was doing the very thing I want to do because it created a new comfort zone. I would look at this comfort zone and say, this is the way life is supposed to be. I would be uncomfortable going back to the lifestyle of struggling to get my bills paid on a regular basis. So for many of you out there, once you figure this dream out, your challenge is to get on the internet and start figuring out if there's any groups or associations or Facebook chat rooms that are doing the very thing it is that you want to do. So that way you can create a new comfort zone for yourself. So this will be set up as the new norm, not what you're dealing with now.
Yeah, and I think that's very important because I recently connected with a couple of Facebook pages and a couple of groups, and just being in the same arena of everyone else that's doing the same thing that I'm doing is just much more powerful, and it's encouraging because up until this point, I really didn't have anyone that I could actually talk to because your family and your friends or your family and friends, they wish you well, but they really don't understand exactly why are you even on a radio show? What are you trying to do? You're trying to explain.
Because that's not their dream.
Right, because it's not
their dream. It's your dream. That's right.
Exactly. So being in the same, finding those groups and finding, clubs, mentors, whatever it may be that has your vision and that understands what you're trying to do empowers you more because not only does it give you someone to talk to, it also makes you accountable because now you're working with these groups and now you're accountable because, these people are now, okay, what are you doing? Why are you sitting on the sideline? Come on, let's go. And they're pushing you along and everyone's pushing everyone along. It is really awesome because the one group I'm working with, the theme is let's grow together. Everyone's pushing everyone together because we're all in agreement. And that's encouraging, that's motivational to you because, like I said, your family and friends, they're just like, okay, you got a radio show. Okay, Karim, you're a motivational speaker. But they don't understand it. So it's really, you really want to find those groups. Well, I'm happy I found the groups.
Well, like I said, iron strengthens iron. So a lot of times, and here's the thing, it's a faith walk. When I had to pursue the different challenges to get to where I'm at now, I'm not going to lie to anyone on the phone and say it was easy. I had to be willing to be the dumbest person in the room. I mean, you could be the smartest person in the room, but starting out on this challenge, I had to be willing to be the dumbest person in the room because that means I didn't know anything. And so I was afraid to raise my hand and ask a question because I was afraid they're going to look at me and say, that was a really dumb question you asked. But that's how you learn. You have to be willing to pour out everything you think you know and be the dumbest person in the room to absorb as much knowledge as possible. But if you're willing to go through that uncomfortability, I guarantee you'll be a success. But it's success is 50% what you know, 50% who you know. So you can have all the skill set in the world. I can be the most dynamic speaker in the world. But if I'm not around the right people that can open doors for me, I'll be talking to myself in a closet. You see what I'm saying? It's 50% what you know, 50% who you know. So that's why another reason why you got to leave that comfort zone. You got to get out there and see who's doing what it is you want to do and set that as the new norm. And the last thing I'll add on to it is a lot of times God puts you around people that are doing exceptionally better than where you are, not because it's to rub your face in it, but let you know that, hey, I can do the same thing for you. I'm putting a measure of success in front of you so you'll raise your bar higher. A lot of us will get I would do that with my mentor. I would get so awe-inspired about where he was at. And God said, no, you misunderstand this whole thing. The reason why I'm allowing you to peer into this guy's universe is because I'm letting you know your bar can be just as high or even higher. I'm telling you where to aim at. Stop aiming low and dream big. Dream big.
Yes. Yeah. So 2014, we are all dreaming big. We are making our dreams, turning our dreams from dreams into reality. Karim has given us 3 excellent ways to do it. We want to first know what our dream is. Do you have a dream? What is your dream? Number 2, stop asking for permission. I think that should be number 1. But,
you know what? That very well could be, because that trips a lot of folks up. They keep asking their job for permission and family and peers. Stop asking for permission. It's easier to do it and then get in trouble than ask for permission to be told no. I would get my butt whooped all the time as a kid growing up because I would do it and take the butt whooping as opposed to ask mom, knowing mom's going to say no.
And stop focusing on the wrong thing. Don't focus on how. Focus on the reason. The reason why you're doing that, or what is your purpose. Find your purpose. Think back, like you said, think back to how you were a child. What did you do extremely well growing up as a kid? And one of mine was talking. I always got in trouble for talking. Imagine that.
Well, I got one for you. I just happened to look through my senior yearbook like about 2 years ago. I never really looked through it back in '93, and I was voted most talkative. Go figure. My senior year was voted most talkative. So the thing I tell people all the time is there was going to be a point in time where I was going to get paid to speak, and people say that's never going to happen. And I say, okay, we'll see. That's a gift and that's a talent, because not everybody can get in front of a room and do it. But yeah, I was saying, but most of us that do this side of the fence, we're talkers. We always have been.
Yeah, I got in a lot of trouble for talking. They would say, yeah, Myra is good, but she just talks. They moved me across the
keep
room.
Moving her. Yeah, there you go. See, I knew it.
Her desk, why is her desk right next to the teacher's? She keeps talking, and I'm still turning around talking.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Karim, I really
That ain't even over. She's still talking.
I know, right? Well, Karim, I really do appreciate, once again, this is the perfect time for you to come on. We're starting out the beginning of January 2014. We're dreaming big in 2014. Remember what your dreams are. Find your dreams, find your purpose. And you can find Karim as Karimr Ellis. Just Google him. And what was your email again? Empire Moves?
It's Karim, Karim at Empowered Moves. All one word,
okay.
EMPOWEREDMOVES.com. And we're launching a new website. You can go to KarimEllis.com. You can get me at the website also. I know we're finishing some stuff out on that. But we have a new website coming in February, about mid-February, called TheAudacityToDreamBig.com. TheAudacityToDreamBig.com. We'll have a whole lot of stuff on that site. That's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, so I really recommend. I know I'm on Karim's Facebook page, and he posts a lot of motivational, inspirational things for you to know and to read, and some of the stuff that he was talking about. Because I like that planting the seed, because you do have wasn't that your YouTube video that you did?
YouTube video. Yeah, oh yeah. Listen, this year we got a lot. There's a lot more coming on social media, so this is a great time to jump and connect with me on social media, because we got clips coming by the pound. We got a lot of stuff coming on that social media site.
So, we're finishing. And once again, I do appreciate it. You coming on to the show. I know I learned a lot, even as far as finding, I already know my purpose, but just my dreams, making sure that I am planted and rooted before I try and put on a billion other things. So once again, Do appreciate it. And you have a nice evening, everyone. Remember to follow me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Blog Talk Radio. I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.